They say money can buy comfort, but not peace, and love, never. This is the story of Isabella Morgan, a young billionaire who had everything the world could offer, except happiness. And of Ethan Cole, a simple man whose heart was richer than any fortune. A story of grief, pride, and a love that came when it was least expected. This is Love Beyond the Fortune. The night was quiet when the news came. A private jet had crashed in the hills outside the city, no survivors. Inside that jet were Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, billionaires, philanthropists, and Isabella's entire world. At just 25, Isabella became the sole heir to her family's empire. The media called her the world's youngest billionaire heiress. But behind the mansion gates, behind the designer dresses and dark glasses, was a broken girl who couldn't stop shaking. She stopped talking to friends. She stopped smiling. Her father's company kept running, but she didn't care. Every morning, she'd stare at their picture and whisper, "You left me, with everything and nothing." Ethan Cole, a humble mechanic, known for being blunt and proud of his work. He wasn't afraid of anyone, not even billionaires. He once worked on the Morgans' private cars, until Isabella fired him after he criticized her for being spoiled. Their last conversation ended with her yelling, "You have no idea what it means to live in my world." And him replying, "You're right, because your world doesn't seem to have any joy." Months later, their paths would cross again, in the most unexpected way. 6 months after her parents' death, Isabella's company faced a major scandal. A trusted manager embezzled millions, and she became the face of the mess. The media turned on her. Investors pulled back. Exhausted, she took her car and drove out of the city, alone, chasing silence. Rain poured, roads flooded, and then, her car broke down in the middle of nowhere. She stepped out, angry and soaked, only to see a familiar figure walking from a nearby garage. It was Ethan. He smirked slightly. "Well, if it isn't the Queen of Diamonds. Need help?" She frowned. "No, I'll call someone." He shrugged. "No signal out here. You can wait in the rain, or you can swallow that pride." After a long pause, she sighed. "Fine. Do what you can." Ethan fixed what he could but needed a part he didn't have till morning. He offered her a dry place at his home, a small, cozy cabin behind his workshop. That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. She watched as he cooked, hummed softly, and treated her like a person, not a headline. When he brought her tea, she whispered, "You didn't have to." He smiled. "Yeah, I did. You look like you haven't been cared for in a while." Something inside her cracked. For the first time in months, she cried, not out of anger, but release. He didn't say much, just handed her a towel and said softly, "You don't always have to be strong. Sometimes, it's okay to break." The next morning, Isabella didn't leave right away. Something about the calmness of the countryside, the smell of oil and rain, felt human. Days passed. She started helping Ethan in the shop, awkward at first, then with laughter. They argued often, but each argument ended with smiles. She cooked, he teased her for burning eggs. He taught her how to fix a tire, she taught him how to say, "Thank you," without sarcasm. She began to feel something she hadn't in a long time, peace. One evening, as the sun dipped, Ethan looked at her and said, "You're not as cold as you pretend to be." She smiled weakly, "And you're not as rude as you try to act." They both laughed, but their eyes said more than their words. They grew close, too close. Ethan tried to ignore it, she tried to deny it. But when he fixed her father's old watch and placed it gently in her hand, she broke down. "He gave this to me on my 18th birthday, she whispered. "He'd want you to keep living, Isabella," Ethan said softly. "Not surviving." That night, they shared a quiet dinner. No words. Just warmth. And when their hands brushed, she didn't pull away. Her company needed her. The media wanted answers. With a heavy heart, Isabella returned to the city, but she wasn't the same woman who left. She was calmer, kinder, stronger. And every night, she thought about that small house, and the man who made her laugh again. She visited often, until gossip spread. Photos leaked of her and Ethan together. The media called him the gold-digging mechanic. Her board warned her, "He's ruining your image." Ethan saw the headlines and disappeared. Weeks later, Isabella stood on stage at a charity event. Cameras flashed. She was supposed to talk about wealth and success. Instead, she spoke from her heart. "They told me money could buy happiness. They lied. I found peace in a broken garage. I found love in a man who had nothing, yet gave me everything." Gasps filled the hall. Some applauded. Others whispered. And from the back of the crowd, Ethan watched silently, pride and pain mixed on his face. Later that night, she found him waiting outside, near her car. He smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have said my name up there." "I didn't," she replied. "But they knew." He took her hand. "You belong to a world I'll never fit in." Tears filled her eyes. "You were the only thing that ever fit right." They stood there, under the city lights, two souls from different worlds, connected yet divided by life itself. He kissed her forehead gently, whispering, "Don't stop living, Isabella. Promise me that." She nodded through tears. He walked away, fading into the night. Months later, Isabella opened a foundation in her parents' name, helping struggling small businesses, starting with Ethan's town. She never saw him again, but every time she drove past the countryside, she'd see a small garage light glowing and smile softly.